Okay, my name is Nomvuzo, but a lot of people refer to me as Nomi. So we were assigned to design an African cultural resort, which is called Emathafeni. Emathafeni means on the plains. It is situated in the Eastern Cape, where the Xhosa people reside, and it's going to be a building that represents the Xhosa culture and also celebrates Ubuntu. It's going to have a cultural center that showcases Xhosa tradition and culture to the visitors. And also the accommodation will be ideal for couples, groups, and family who want to explore the cultural architecture being expressed in different elements. Going on to the next page. Looking on to the different elements, we're allocated to describe 15 elements out of the 6 categories. So just to give an overview and background of Xhosa people, they are referred to as red blanket people. And approximately there are about 8 million Xhosas in South Africa. And the name Xhosa is generalized from the term for a diversity of proud clans, such as Mpondo, Bomvana, Tembu, and the Xhosa tribe itself. So Xhosa basically would be the blanket covering all the other clans below it, beneath it. And then we look into aesthetics and forms. As you can see, obviously we have the different forms of the rondavel shape, which I decided that I'll create a modern stylish interior, and then in contrast, I'll create a traditional rondavel exterior. And then creating a signature aesthetic, it will be represented with a calabash duplex unit. And with the doors, windows, and columns, they will be crafted and given patterns representing the Xhosa culture. And then looking into materials and sustainability, I'll be using clay brick, as the site that has been selected actually is filled with a lot of clay, so it's quite convenient to attain the material. Stone foundation will be used. Thatch roof will be used for roofing due to the fact that it's good with heat retention during cold winters and heat dissipation during hot summer months. And there's a lot of trees which are exotic around the site that I'll be using to formulate timber. The toilets will be waterless composing, where the liquid waste will be used as nitrogen-rich liquid fertilizer, and the solid waste as fertilizer, which will be sold to the market. Looking at culture and lifestyle, with the courtyard space area, I've created it around the accommodation area and where the rondavels are situated. The dining experience will be placed outside, even though there is an indoor restaurant setting whereby people will gather and relax. The museum spotlight will be indoor, which will be showcasing craft and craft work produced at a workshop and a gallery exhibition of local artists' work. And then we look into the process and costs of the building. Looking at the process and cost of the building, I'll be creating a resort that establishes interaction between visitors and locals, empowering of women through construction methods and use of local material, ownership of resorts, and the ownership of the resort will be community-based as it belongs to the chief. And touching on spirituality and philosophy, there was a huge inspiration around the calabash, which is the clay pots, because those are normally used during ceremonial events by having umqomboti, which is a traditional beer, and it's a way of connecting to the ancestors. As Xhosa people, we also worship with ancestors, but modernized now, some people are also Christians. And the workshop space will be the place where it will express the creativity and also just the connectivity in terms of making the items. And also traditional healers are also recognized as a form of spirituality, and they're recognized by the exotic regalia and often wear white which symbolizes purity, which was one element I placed as a color onto the building. And then we look at precedent studies. In terms of my research, looking at traditional buildings, I found one in KwaZulu-Natal, which is in Durban. It's a Didima resort where they use thatch material and motifs on the wall. And then there's one located in the Eastern Cape, which is an Edo Bush Palace. They've got unique and colorful Ndebele cultural artwork on the exterior walls of the lodges. And due to the fact that they use Ndebele, they fall under the Ngunu clan, so they still respect the Ngunu people, still being Xhosa, Zulu, or Ndebele. And then we've got the Sunny Pass, which is based in the Drakensberg in Lesotho. For these sites, they used stone to build the main structure, and it's still preserved in a way of construction till today. And then in contrast, looking into precedent studies on the modern elements, I looked into Fes, Senegal, which is a Tsoki More school that's based in Senegal, where they used a thick thatched pitch roof, and it's efficient for insulating heat. And also there is one in the Eastern Cape based in Port Elizabeth. It's actually a bungalow and spa, some form of resort, located in Bondoland in the Eastern Cape, which provides aesthetic designed thatch roof shapes, which is attracted me because the form as well kind of like changed from your traditional aspect. And then lastly, we look at an Australian building by George Bergeson, who respects culture in the way he designs. And he used natural materials such as stone and copper in dramatically modulated natural light into his building. And then now we get into my conceptual process in terms of what is Emathafeni Resort all about and how did it come about. So beginning with it, I'm creating an unfolding journey of Xhosa woman, seeing that Xhosa woman move from a stage of being a young girl, being a married woman, and then turning into being an elderly. So the cultural center will embrace mainly on women, and from that, there'll be also a craft market where women will be upskilled and also taught skills to create like clay pots, beadwork, fabrics, which instills the tradition and culture of being Xhosa. So with that process of clay pot making, it inspired me to envelope into my building, picking it up as a natural product and seeing that my site is mainly made out of clay, so that resembled a connection. And then moving on to the molding process, which allowed me to segment my site into grid layouts and start placing where I want my spaces to be. And then getting to the drying and putting into the fire process, this is where my spatial organization came into place and flow and what will influence the setting. And then finally, you normally glaze your clay pot that you've designed, which in essence will resemble the type of structure and shape of my building, type of columns, and also roof inspiration. So what I decided to do with the roof, I moved away from the conventional traditional roof shape and decided to make it a contemporary roof shape. The reason behind that, I thought of things like lighting, bringing circulation of air, and also the amount of volume that will be provided into that space. Because normally rondevaux are condensed and not so much light is accommodated in that space. So I decided to give it more of a contemporary feel by breaking away from your triangle shape, but to a more cone, semi-circle kind of shape. And then moving on to the duplex area, I wanted to celebrate more of the courtyard kind of feel space, yet having people live around it, but in the middle, there should be activities taking place. And then with these sketches that I have here, they're just resembling sustainability elements that will be implemented on the site, such as the clay brick making process, the way water harvesting will be produced, and also the waterless composing of toilets by separating liquid and solids. And then moving on into the mood board and inspiration for my building. Obviously, aesthetically, I just thought I want raw elements. I want elements that will reflect Xhosaness. So material-wise, I utilized what exists on site and obviously what also exists around the area. Thatch would be quite close because Lesotho is also close to where the site is, so we'd be able to attain that material. Stone, the site is also quite rocky, so we'll cast the stones from the site, timber from the trees, clay from the site. And then obviously elements, putting a bit of modern, inspired by one of the top best designers in South Africa, Maxhosa, looking at his pattern work resembling Xhosa people. And now we get into the actual site, the building. Where is it going to be situated? So the site that I chose for it is in the Eastern Cape in Matatiele, which is my hometown. And it's based in along the R56 route, which is one of the longest routes in the Eastern Cape. So it bears quite a lot of tourists as well. So I thought, okay, placing it along this route will be a great access point. And then also picking up on the weather conditions, seeing that it's north facing, the site is north facing, but it's got strong westerly prevailing winds and also easterly winds. So on this region at the bottom, I decided to place the accommodation, and at the top part, decided to situate the actual center. And then what's great is, it's a great feature of the site is having a stream. So it's a water element. It will contribute a lot when it comes to water harvesting and also looking into ways of integrating it onto the site. And also looking at how the sun flows. I try to optimize my design so that it actually works with the site instead of just looking pretty. And then also the type of existing trees, as I did mention, they are exotic. So you'd find that they are elliptic cypress and eucalyptus type of trees, which will be utilized as timber frame structures. And then moving on to the site, the floor plan. So entrance will be coming in from the R56 into the building. And then you have your reception area as number 2. Number 3, your museum. Number 4 is your restaurant eating space, which will have openings overseeing over the river to the accommodation. Number 5, a conference hall. Number 6, this is where the workshop will take place. And 12, that's where the outdoor, probably could have markets during the weekends where they could sell their items. 7, this is where the duplex accommodation is. 11, walkway. 8, this is a courtyard area where people can come and sit in some form of barn area where they can relax and also have barbecue and have like a chilled evening. 9, this is where the rendezvous accommodation units are. And 10 being the bridge that crosses over from the cultural center to the accommodation. And then looking into the floor plans, zoomed in further, obviously touching on different materials and patterns, and also just the layout. So the rendezvous, I've moved away from the conventional and gave it more of a contemporary feel on the interior. It's going to have a small kitchenette with a lounge sitting area. And then in the middle, there'll be a fireplace where people can still sit and relax. So it's like a fireplace bonding space. It's got 2 bedrooms and a toilet. And then the other one being the duplex. So these ones have only 1 bedroom with a full-on bathroom, being a bath, shower, and basin and toilet, and just a relaxing chair. And then obviously on the outside, it's gonna have balcony space where people can go out. And then with the 3D visuals, this is the aerial view of the site. So a person moving from the cultural center, having accessibility onto the actual cultural center. And then, as I did mention, that using white color, resembling that purity from the spiritual aspect. And also for people just to control access in terms of flow, going through the experience of the cultural center, linking into their accommodation spaces. And then this being the courtyard space, where people can sit and gather. So I created some form of pergola system on top, above the columns, which will be patterned, having a sitting barn area with a fireplace in the middle. So a lot of patterns and celebration of who we are is represented. And then also the accommodation rendezvous, looking at the roof, moving away from the conventional shape, but bringing it more aesthetically to a more contemporary feel. Also, it kind of like provides a cover or like some form of shade as well that it gives off to the building on the entrance. And then this is just an a close-up look in terms of the courtyard space where people will be sitting and gathering. And this being the duplex accommodation of the 1-bedroom, where someone will access, they have a courtyard space. And then obviously the columns went very unconventional with some patterns, where I just decided to give it a fresh look and something that's unusual. And also it's just picking up a bit of a contemporary calabash, being the clay pot feel. And then this is just an impression of giving off the walkway into the duplex. As you can see, there is a big opening, so it provides in a lot of light into that courtyard interior space. And just to conclude, I would like to say, as a futuristic Afrocentric architect, I believe that our worldview should positively reflect traditional African values. Being part of CPDI Africa, a global African community that fosters the historical elements of Africa's development, have allowed me to attain much dignity, to reconnect with my Ubuntu and establish the true essence of our architectural landscape as a continent and the diaspora in Africa. I thank you, and I'm open for any questions.